Thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask Off-Road here at Off-Road Addiction. Today we're going to talk about ORI Struts versus Fox Coilovers. All right, so here's the Fox coilover. This is it, completely assembled. This is a 2-inch version. This is good for trucks and Jeeps, light trucks like small stuff, buggies, mostly Jeeps. So you're comprised of the shock itself, that's the bare shock. And then you have the 2 springs, and these springs are usually different weights depending on your application. These particular springs we just have set up. These are just hanging out, but they're 250 pounds per square inch on each spring. But a lot of guys will go 150 and 300, or if you have something really heavy, let's say you did 300 and 300, and that's going to be all your spring rate. Now, to run a Fox coilover, some people, which I don't really suggest, run just the coilover, but it's really not meant for it to be like that. You're going to want a limiting strap, so that's going to limit the shock extension. So we would put the limiting strap, so it was about, I would say, a 1/4 inch below full top out. So the strap's tense, and that takes all the brunt, and you still got a little bit on the shock so you don't rip it right apart. Again, from the other way, for compression, we use a lot of hydraulic bumps. You can use just a standard bump if you wanted to, but hydraulic's usually the way to go with this kind of stuff. And again, this would compress totally about a 1/4 inch before you got full compression on the coilover. And with the coilover, to adjust all your heights, basically you need a spanner wrench. This spanner wrench would spin down and tighten, and then this would lock it out. And that's how you would set your ride height and level out the truck or the Jeep or buggy. And again, for unloading and stiffness, you'd be into changing your spring rate. So if you found that you had a good guesstimation, let's say 250, and 250 was where you wanted to start, and you're like, you know what, it's a little stiff or it's a little springy, then you have to take that back out, take the spring off. They actually disassemble from the bottom. Basically, there's just this piece. If I can get it off. Probably can't. Well, regardless, that pops off. There's a little ring in there, it's gone. And then you would slide that off, and you would reassemble this way and put your 2 springs in, clip that back together, and put it back in the vehicle. Now, when I'm looking at the ORI struts, that's all you need. You don't need a bump stop. You don't need a limiting strap, and then you actually don't need a sway bar. Everything works all internally. They don't unload once you get them set up the way you want. All you have to do, if you don't like the adjustment, stiff or soft, once you charge it properly, you're just going to turn that dial. This particular ones are 12 inches, and they're just for a project we have in the shop. In a later episode, we'll get it all done on there, and you'll be able to see how they work and how we set them up on a real application. So really, in conclusion, the Fox coilover and the springs themselves, they sound cheaper, but really, once you add in all the factors of adding in a hydraulic bump, adding in a limiter, and if you're paying someone to put this stuff in, it's a lot more labor intensive and a lot more work. And if you have space constraints, you still have to fit all these units on all 4 corners. Whereas the ORI strut, you just need the strut, and you're done. It's good to go. So off the top, they look more expensive, but I feel that they work better. They're easier to adjust, and they take up less space. And like I said, the labor of just installing all this stuff is quite a bit less. All right, that's it for our episode with ORI Struts versus the Fox Coilovers. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Any other questions, give us a shout.